My guest for this episode is Sherri Edwards. Sherri started her own consulting business, Resource Maximizer, nearly 25 years ago. Her career in sales, operations, and HR management included 37 different jobs. We talk about her journey and why she had so many jobs, how she launched her own business and didn't wait for permission to do it, how she overcame her imposter syndrome, and the incredible value of community and networking. This is Invincible Career, and I'm Larry Cornett. Welcome to the show, Sherri. It's great to have you here after talking with you on Twitter for so long.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we've ever seen each other.
It's kind of funny, in even this real life. Yeah.
No. It's funny how you make all these friends online now, and it's like, oh, wait a second, we've never met, we've never done a video chat.
I've talked to about 4 on Twitter in real life.
Cool.
I mean, by Zoom or by phone.
Oh, nice.
But it is just communicating electronic.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start with hearing a little bit more about who you are and what you do, a little bit more about your business.
Okay, thanks. I started my business, it's going on to its 25th year now.
Wow.
I started, believe me, I'm saying.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it was because I had a gazillion jobs. And I mean, truly, I've had 37 jobs.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Okay, you've got me beat.
Yeah.
I think I've only had 27.
Okay. Well, I don't know if my story is similar to yours, but it was because I was motivated by money. I mean, I had to pay bills. My credit is perfect.
Sure.
So I would just barge into stuff because, that pays well and that sounds interesting. And I was so naive and I just believed everybody. And then I'd get in there and find out that I had been fed a bunch of bull or, just so many. I don't even want to get into all the scenarios I got into at the time with employers that didn't match my values. And it was upsetting. And I would just say, okay, I don't need this. And I'd quit. And I mean, one would think there are only so many times you could do that. It obviously took me a lot. But, over the years, I moved from sales into business management, ultimately ended up running staffing businesses. And that's when I got more in tune with what candidates really need. And I was that link between the employer and the candidate. So I had to recruit people for our company that would fit what my clients needed. So I spent a lot of my time learning what all the clients that I could, dig up business with needed, and then finding out about candidates. And what I found is that, boy, there was such a crossover there that they were not meeting. And I found out a few things. It's why I don't tell anybody, but I kind of have an attitude about HR in general. I had to become the HR manager of that business. So business operations, HR manager, head recruiter, you name it, I did it all. And inside of that, I would find that they didn't ask enough questions. And candidates didn't even know what to give them.
Sure.
So because of my sales background, I just asked and I asked and I asked. And then I learned if I asked HR people who sent me an order, I'd say, gosh, I know you're so busy. I really want to make sure I make you look good. I'm sure that, I'm sure that I can find something that's really going to fit your needs, but it'd be great if I could talk to Bob, the supervisor, to learn what you really need. And if those conversations told me something completely different than what I had gotten sent to me as a request. And so that's how I started filling orders. And then as I went through my database, which by the way was cards. I mean, this is how long ago it was.
Yeah,
so they were cards. They were cards. And it's changing now, but I used to have like a photographic memory. So I remember who the people were and what their phone numbers were, and if they had a car, didn't have a car, and where they lived and all that stuff. And when we got an order and we moved really quickly, and my staff would just come to my office door and say, so-and-so just called, needs X. And I'd say, call this person, call that person. Anyway, that was a blast because it was such fast pace. But what I learned along the way that I could sell more services if I knew more about what clients wanted. And HR wasn't going to give that up easily.
Right.
And they didn't really in the early days have separate recruiting departments from HR in a lot of companies. It just wasn't a notion. So yeah, again, I asked a lot of questions, filled things that we probably couldn't have filled if I hadn't. Learned that candidates didn't have a clue what to be telling, so I did resumes to help market them appropriately
Mm-hmm.
and change them. And I realized that all I had done to get myself jobs, I was doing for other people because
Right.
I had had any title you could ever think of. And if I just used a chronological resume without the right data in it, then they'd say, well, you can't be this because you were called that. So it's like, yeah, but I know how to do that. And I understand that frustration. So ultimately, I wanted to have my own business because I was tired of quitting, tired of getting fired, tired of people lying to me, tired of having to support
Right.
values I didn't agree with. When I thought I could serve a client and HQ was saying, no, we can't do that. Our policy. Well, who cares about our policies? We can and they need it.
Yeah.
So that all led to my starting my own business. And even in those years, I thought, well, I don't know where. I guess I could do it out of my home. Oh, you people won't come to your home. It's not possible. And that was quickly proven wrong. I started my business by attending job fairs and offering to be the speaker. And so those were
Okay. Yeah.
events with several hundred people in and out, and they'd stick me in a room, and there'd be 80 people with a captive audience, and I'd tell them something. And what was funny is what I've always considered common sense, I soon found out people don't know this stuff. If you look at my website, I'm not brilliant. There's nothing in there that's like a real, oh God, I'd never know that. I just
Right.
pointed out the
Sure.
obvious, and I showed people what I had done to allow myself to support myself, basically.
Right.
And that also
Yeah.
used my sales experience in asking enough questions to make sure that we got the information we needed to make sure we're pursuing the right things.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, here we are a gazillion years later. And along the way, I've created probably 25 training webinars. I mean, they
Oh,
had been
cool.
in-person
Yeah.
workshops. People were coming to my home, and we did workshops here. Now everything, of course, is virtual.
Right.
I had been doing corporate training as well. I was doing outplacement for Drake Beam Warren for a while,
Okay.
and then stopped subcontracting through them and did it directly with some businesses. But over the years, as I've gotten older and don't want to run around the state as
Yeah.
often as I was, I've leaned more to one on one. And
Oh, interesting.
throughout
Okay.
all of that, another thing I did was the transition assistance program for the military.
Okay.
And I don't know if I even mentioned that to
Oh,
you. Did
no, I
that
didn't
for
know that.
10 years where I went to the military bases and really talked to people for 3 days, different components about how to get a job in the civilian world.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
once again, I didn't do well with leadership because at some point, the contract I had started, I was using my own material. And the people on the base were really cool and they make all the copies for me. We didn't tell anybody. And then after a while, many years, about year 10, they said, okay, nobody's using any deviations from what we're sending.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, I'm out. And I found it was the best thing I could ever do because my business tripled by just letting go of that one thing.
Oh, really?
And I could
Okay.
help that many more people one on one long. So
Sure.
my business evolved from some opportunities that I hadn't planned on. I never had any intention of working on a military base. That showed
Right.
up. Some of my best friends now are the people I met through the family service centers there
Yeah.
that bootleg my material. So that's kind of the gist of it. And I don't want to keep talking and talking and talking, but if you're ready, or when you're ready, I can tell you a little more about some of the other things that I do inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. You pointed out something that I've said a few times because I remember I was giving a talk somewhere. I think this was maybe my talk in Australia, and I said, I shared some advice and career planning advice, that kind of thing. After the talk, somebody came and said, "I really enjoyed your talk, but what you said is, it's kind of common sense, and then, everybody knows to do X, Y, Z." And I said, "Well, that's fantastic." And I said, "So you're doing X, Y, Z?" And they said, "Oh, well, I'm actually not doing it. I
Yeah,
should be
yeah, yeah,
doing it."
that.
And so I said, that's the whole common sense isn't common practice.
No,
And it's the thing I think that we often offer as coaches is that encouragement and accountability. So it's like, you should be doing this, but you're not.
Right.
So I'm going to be here to remind you and to encourage you
Yeah.
and to tell you every week,
Well,
you need to
and
be
I think
calling people.
some people though get a picture of big stuff. And so they think they get it, but when it comes to putting one foot in front of the other, they
Right. Yeah.
really just can't break it down. And so I think that's our job too, is to break it down and make
Yeah.
it doable for everybody that you work with. And my clients are all over the map. I'm a generalist. I work in all industries, and I've
Okay.
got people that have PhDs, researchers and scientists, as well as engineers, and then people that are in hospitality. I mean, everybody.
Wow.
So
Okay.
along the way, it's our job to know enough about whoever we serve to know what's needed in their world and the tactics that are likely to work, and then break
Right.
them down small enough. So that's where my workshops came from, by the way. It's because I
Oh,
thought,
okay.
wow, you don't know that? Really? So I started creating workshops, and some of the stuff that I created were tools that I found to help people get over the hump. So some of my
Right.
classes are time management, goal setting, effective communication. Because you can see standing out here, you can say, well, now I can see why you're not getting that done,
Right.
and I can see where the problem here is. You haven't broken it down to measurable steps. And so I started creating all these workshops around what it takes to be successful at work. And of course, for someone who had 37 jobs, one of the first things someone said when I wanted to start my business, why in the world would anybody come to you if you've had 37 jobs? And I said, because I know how to get a job.
Yeah.
And then it took me to get grown up to recognize that I needed to select better to keep a
Sure.
job.
Yeah.
And
Right.
those are the
Right.
lessons that I learned along the way, which is what allows me to coach other people in how to be successful. It's like, don't do what I did. This and we laugh a lot because there are scenarios that can play out where I can describe some things that I did that were just ridiculous. But now that I know better, and that's the thing, now that I know better, and also when I was in staffing was a major point because I was that in between, seeing what the problem was. Because
Right.
logically,
Right.
as you look forward, you go, why am I not getting a job? And why are they not contacting me? And, why am I believing what they're saying? Well, that's before we had, and this is the big key too. I have to give myself a little cred in that. Remember, these are years long before the internet. So if I
Right.
wanted to know anything, I had to go to the library.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and I mean,
Exactly.
I used SEC codes and got books about, but they don't tell you this stuff. And it's like, how do you really get to talk to everybody everywhere? Well, now I just look at, wow, this is so cool. We have LinkedIn and we have all these tools to
Right.
find out information. Why would you not? Why would you not find out everything you would possibly want to know
Right. Yeah.
before you even put one foot in front of the other? So I've just spent, the last 15 years probably fine tuning those things. And
Sure.
I think at the heart of everything that I try to show people is I try to build community, and I
Mm.
try
Hmm.
to really impress how your network is the thing that's going to move the
Yeah.
dial.
That's right.
That's the element that other people can't compete with, that you can, if and so the whole key is using it strategically. And I designed a workshop called Strategic Network. So instead
Mm.
of
Oh,
tag
good.
you're it.
Yeah.
And one
Right.
of the things you may have noticed is I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter. It wasn't my intention. When COVID hit, I thought, well, I guess I could start experimenting because I'm going to have to start telling people some new options about meeting when you're not going to go out and have drinks and coffee
Exactly.
with
That's
people.
right. Yeah.
So I'm going to have to get better at developing relationships with people than just hanging out. And although I'd done some degree of that, I hadn't really used Twitter a lot. And I had compartmentalized. I use Facebook personally. I have a
Hmm.
LinkedIn profile, and I have a website, of course. But I really didn't use electronics to connect. I counted on real people, and most of my business has since way back when in the job fair days, since those ended, it was with people. So
Oh
I
yeah.
started out using Twitter, when COVID hit. And I watched people. I was like stalking people. And I found people like you and Jen saying, and others that I thought, you're fun. I really like you. And so I just reached out.
Yeah.
I didn't randomly select people. I've been very careful about who I connect with.
Right.
And I haven't done major things to try to get millions of followers because I thought I function on relationship. In my
Yes.
world, I believe coaching is really a component of relationship, showing
Yeah.
others how to leverage that. So that's been my thing. And I have to say, I'm very, very grateful and pleased that I met you. And they're like 10, and that's it. 10 people that I communicate with frequently, maybe another 25 that I do at times.
Sure.
But that's kind of how I grew my LinkedIn profile. It's kind of how I grew everything. It's just try to get to know people. And obviously, we've had to collapse that time to
Yeah.
get to know people faster and better.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of the things that I'm very grateful for.
You're good at it. You're really good on Twitter. Because it's
Really?
like, I
So
think
that's
so.
another surprise
It's
because I have no clue. I have no clue. I'll tell you. I have an assistant who has helped me with some things like the data entry involved with marketing stuff. I write all
mm-hmm.
my own stuff. But
Good.
for the longest, she'd take my stuff and load it on Twitter, and no one cared. No one did anything. It was when I finally realized, after all these years, no one gives a rip. I need to figure out who I want to read and what I'm going to say. So I said, I'll take it back. So I did. So I've just been experimenting.
Yep.
And along
Yep.
the way, I thought, the reality is I'm finding people I actually like.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's where like Jen and I connected on popcorn. That's it. Okay, so yeah, we have stuff in common, and she's building a coaching practice. There are lots of things to learn, but the popcorn was the seal. So, I think your ribs were the seal for me. When
Oh
I saw
yeah,
those,
the
I
ribs.
thought,
That's right.
okay, you're in. You know,
The
uh,
smoked ribs. Yes,
yeah,
that's
no,
right.
seriously. It's like, okay, you got it. And so along the way, I found a thing that just really resonated with me, and so I pick at those little things along the way, and that's where I've said I talked to Jen for the real first time this week also.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
and a couple others I've talked to by phone, but the rest
Nice.
has all. And so I thought I'm going to use it to the best that I can imagine. And I've posted some stuff where I created a riot, and I finally took it down because it was like, whoa, okay, never mind. I think I'm being misunderstood and I'm not
That
straightening it out. So
happens.
I think
Yeah.
I'll take it down. And then there have been some other things that I thought, okay, nobody was interested in that. So it's experimenting,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
which I would say I've progressed because in years past we didn't have these, and I would just say those things and piss people off. And I go,
Right.
oh, whoops, I can't take it back. So it's nice now I can.
Yeah, yeah, that is the danger. It's like now thousands of people get upset with me. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
well, and
Yeah.
yeah. Well, fortunately, I don't have that many followers, so there won't be. But there were enough people that that I can think of two things over those 2 years. I was like, okay, calm down. I
Sure.
don't think
Yeah.
I'm making my point, so I'll just
Yeah,
leave
I
it
think
alone.
that's exactly. It's hard with just a few characters to be clear about what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
And
that is
sometimes
huge.
you're like, okay, you misunderstood what I was trying to say. And it's like, I'll try to explain it, but if it's going sideways, it's like, okay, forget it.
It's
It's
like
like,
what I've advised my clients. If you're emailing somebody and it's going back more than 3 times,
just
pick up the phone.
pick up the phone.
Really.
Yep.
And in this
Yep.
case, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to pick up the phone and I don't care.
Right.
So I'll just take it back and we can part. And that's that. So I've done that a couple of times.
So you've touched on a thing that I always encourage, and I talk about this a lot. It's like every job I've ever had, that was a good job, I should say, has been through my network. So
Yeah.
it's been all about my network. And I have clients that will come to me and they're struggling for months, sometimes several months.
Yeah.
And they're doing kind of the spray and pray where they're
Yeah.
blasting out resumes and applying. And I said, I don't think that works anymore because it's just too automated. There's too many people doing it.
Kind of never did
Yeah,
tell
exactly.
anybody.
It doesn't work.
It
And
doesn't.
I said, build the relationship, connect with somebody inside the company or a friend that's connected to somebody inside the company
Yeah.
and start
Dig a
having that
little harder.
conversation. You got to
Yeah.
dig. And it opens doors.
It
And the
does.
people who've done it have been surprised. Like they've done it and like within a week or two, they get called for an interview and they're like, wow, that was fast. And I said,
That's the
that's the
difference.
power.
Hello. And it's also that
Yeah.
you're more selective because you learn the
Yeah.
things you need to know. I probably won't have a chance there. I'm not competitive.
Sure. Yeah.
And
That
so,
happens.
one of the things that I built in my business, and I like to brag about it because honestly, if I fell over dead tomorrow, it's the thing I'm proudest of. I created a networking group, and it started out with 5 guys that were in their 40s and 50s whining about ageism. And if
Sure.
you can
Yeah.
imagine, this was 20 years ago.
Oh,
And,
wow.
you look at them all and it's like, what? And I said, you know what? And I kind of have limited patience. So I just said, what do you think about, and I'm starting a group. So I talked to each one of them. I said, what do you feel? And I said, we're not going to have a whiners club. It's not a leads club. We're going to talk about solutions. That's what we're going to do. So in that group, actually, there were 6 original members. One needed to change out of a job he had. The other 5 were unemployed. So one of them just left
Mm.
and said, you're too far from me. I don't want to travel. He stayed unemployed 2 more years.
Oh, wow.
The ones that stayed, within 6 months, the people that were unemployed were all employed. The guy that needed to change changed. And by the way, that one guy, again, he's been with me 22 years now. That's how long this has
Is
been
that right?
around. He has retired twice. He is still with me. Sadly, he has Parkinson's.
Oh,
And
okay.
that group, that original group, I started a women's group and then within 2 years combined them. And, in about 2008, 2009, we had 75 members. And
Oh,
that
cool.
was when the market really tanked.
Right.
We've averaged 50 members forever since then. We do right now. And amazingly, that's what I posted on Twitter the other day. Of all the 50 people, there's only one who's looking for something else, and we're halfway there with him.
Oh,
All the
wow.
rest are employed where they want to be in what we call a plan A job or
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
track to do it. But the fun thing, and this was it, the whole intent was to help each other, to recognize that if you whine about it and commiserate, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
What you can do is ask specifically for help, which means, oh, I have to get to know you to know what you could help with. And so the best fun ever, I think, in this year is some of the kids of those original members are my clients.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, I'm old, but it's been the best fun ever because then they
That's
bring
so
their
cool.
friends. And then
Oh,
we have this bright new light of
yeah.
people that they haven't been told this in college. They didn't even, none of it. It's like,
I
what?
know. They
What?
don't teach this in college.
Yeah.
They
But
don't.
all
Yeah.
these older workers have connections and have things that they can
That's right.
share
That's
about
right.
an organization to lead them this way or that. So just in the past week, one of the success stories was a young engineer had gotten a job just out when he graduated a year ago. He was a contract worker for a company, and I've been working with him. And I said, I don't think they're going to hire you. Well, they keep saying they're going to. Yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. I think you really need to be pursuing something longer term. So it's
Yeah.
like kicking,
Yeah.
kicking. And I said, you need to talk to so and so, and you need to. And we were looking at Flute because big company. Long story about all the good reasons, but I have another client that's been there for several years. Another person I know, all in the same area. So they all talked to him, coached him about what he really needed to focus on,
Mm-hmm.
introduced him to other people. Long story short, he went through 3 different interviewing sets, 3 different
Mm-hmm.
jobs. Each job I found, each one coached him through the interviewing. My group helped him also. The third time he passed and he started this week.
Oh, that's
And
great.
it's so obvious. It never would have happened. And by the way, I was right about the company because they ended his contract a month ago. All those empty
Yeah.
promises over the
Yeah.
year, that he had been there, no, higher. So another young engineer, same kind of thing. To me, that's what keeps me doing this. Um, but also watching how easily people want to help other people.
Yeah.
They just
Mm-hmm.
need some help figuring out who and how and what. So that's what we do. So my group has helped a lot of people figure out a path, figure out the right organizations to join in. And we've had this going rule that once one goes in, they open the door and let more.
That's
And
right.
there have been several organizations where we've done that over a period of years, and then when that organization starts changing and doesn't look so pretty anymore,
Sure. That
yeah,
happens.
we start advising people and changing. And that's kind of what we've been doing now 20 years.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
but it's all based on networking. And it is
Oh.
really getting to know people. We created a structure that demands that they do certain things to
Hmm.
participate. And I think that's what's different. That's where my group's a little different than just random networking.
Hmm.
You can't be random. You're required to do certain things or you can't play. And in return, you'll get the results we're talking about. But that's
Right.
where we've proven it. So that's been a fun ride. And for me, that's been the heart of all of this is teaching people really how to develop relationships, how to ask the right questions if you're going to pursue something instead of saying, "Do you know of any jobs?"
Right.
Or
Exactly.
can you introduce me to the hiring manager? It's like instant fail routine.
I
No, that's not going
know.
to work.
That's one of the earliest conversations I have with people is like, you're gonna have to get clear about who you are, what you want, and specifically what you want next, type of company, type of job. Because I said the first thing somebody's gonna say when you connect, and they're
What
like,
do you
"Hey,
want?
let's get yeah, what are you looking for?" And so I said, "What are you gonna tell them?" They're like, and I said, "That's not good. Yeah, we need to get
Yeah,
really clear on who you are, what you want next, and how they can help." Because
yeah.
people, like you said, I think a lot of people, most people want to help. You just have to tell them what you need.
Well, yeah, because if all you say is, I need a job, and that's way too big, like, well,
Yeah,
I don't know of any job, and that's it.
right.
Or asking for something like, can you introduce me to the hiring manager? It's like, what? I don't know you.
I know exactly.
Really, I don't know you. Why would I jeopardize my
Well,
reputation? Seriously?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, we were sharing what we called data sheets long before LinkedIn. It was a
Hmm.
document that had all this stuff, same stuff LinkedIn has, and goals and things,
Mm-hmm.
more stuff
Hmm.
we wouldn't tell people there. And so then when LinkedIn turned out, we have a private group there as well. But
Okay.
the intent was, no, you have to think about what you're telling people. This is not just going to the world saying, I need a job.
Yeah.
It's like, what matters to you, but first find out what matters to them so they want to listen to what matters to you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's been a process, and again, that's where the classes come in, is to support that learning, because it's not I you know the sad thing is, I think social media has gone to the point where everything is splat and spray. it,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
it's perceived as a winning number, and I guess if I were Kim Kardashian, okay, but I'm not. It's like, what do you really want to get out of that? And if
Right.
you're cute and have the right publicists and other things fall in a row, but gosh, if you're just a regular person who needs a job, there's probably a different approach.
Yeah, there has to be. Yeah, I turned off it was a couple of years ago. I experimented with some of the tools, the automation that does automated posting and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. And I was like, this, it's so fake and it wasn't working for me anyway. Like you said, it was posting every 2 hours and doing this stuff. And I was like, I'm done. I turned it all off.
yeah,
And I said, I'm just going to engage. I'm going to respond to people. I'm going to respond to everybody who responds to me
yep,
and make it a conversation. And
yep.
it's been way more successful, way more enjoyable.
But it
It's just
feels
a
so
better
much better.
experience. Yeah,
It feels so much better. And I'm going to say, I post a lot of stuff that nobody responds to. You got to get used to that too. It's like you
exactly.
think you're saying something that's really helpful and
Yeah.
crickets. It's like, okay, then. Um,
Yeah.
and then I started learning, well, there's some people who like me. Some people think I'm okay. I'll tag them. And so, a few times when I just like, can you just high five me, please? And that's what
Exactly.
I did this week. And I got them back. I thought, okay, there are four of you. I'll take it. I don't need 500. I'll take four.
Exactly. You don't.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't need that. It's the Kevin Kelly 1000 true fans, right? It's like you don't need millions of people to love what you do. You don't.
How in the world would you keep up? I just don't know. I have
Yeah.
to tell you, even with Facebook, and I use that personally, when my birthday comes around and people are notified, of course. I don't believe
Sure.
that everybody remembers that. But when I get 80 people saying happy birthday, I'm like, wow, how that is something I didn't have 20 years ago.
Yeah.
All those people were people I did care about at one time. They're people I went to third grade with, for heaven's sake.
Right. Right.
That's fun. But I'll tell you, I respond to every single one of them.
Oh,
Because
wow.
how cool that you took the time to do that. Whether you really meant it or not, I'll
Exactly.
take it and
Right.
assume that you
Right.
did. And I'll respond to you. And it's rekindled some relationships
It
from when I
does.
was 7 years old.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've reconnected with childhood friends too. It's kind of cool. Yeah. It's a small world. It's been made smaller.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we leave time for people to learn where to find out more about you. So we've been talking about Twitter, talking about your website, you're on LinkedIn. Where can people find you and your business?
Okay. So my website is resourcemaximizer.com.
Cool.
And there are lots of links inside. If anybody had questions, they want to email me, you can see places where it says contact here. On Twitter, I'm at resourcemax. I'm not going to divulge my Facebook because
you don't have to do that.
Don't share it that way. And I am on LinkedIn. You can look for Sherri Edwards. I do have a Resource Maximizer business page, and I'll be honest with you, no one cares, and I don't do a lot with it.
Yep, me too.
It's clear my business is me, so I'm Sherri Edwards, Resource Maximizer. But people know it as Sherri Edwards, and when I get referred, that's where. So you can do a Google, and it's SHERRI. That's the only
fantastic. And I'll include links in the show notes and the post that comes out with this so everybody can find you and locate you.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that.
Well, this has been wonderful, Sherri. It's been nice to actually talk with you.
This is my first podcast, so thank you.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah, it really is.
You're amazing. You're a natural.
Well, thank you. I've done webinars, but every little thing is a bit different, and I usually don't have someone asking me questions. So it's been fun.
Well, this is the start of something new. You should do more.
Well, Jen and I were talking about that. You and I will have to.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you would like to follow upcoming releases of the show, please subscribe. And as always, I appreciate your ratings and reviews. Thank you. If you would like to learn more about Invincible Career and the podcast, you can visit invinciblecareer.com. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.